just like the ones I used to know, where those treetops listen and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow, the snow. But then I am dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days, may your days, may your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops listen and the children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. Yeah, 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 I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write.
May those days, may your days, may your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Ooh.
Welcome, everyone, to this special edition, a Christmas edition of the International Radio Report. My name's Sheldon. Gilles is with me, and we are presenting you with a special edition of our weekly show that appears on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal every Sunday morning at 10:30 Eastern, 15:30 UTC. We are putting this special show together that will not be airing on the radio, but you'll be able to get a link to it on our Facebook group, which is International Radio Report, as well as on our YouTube channel exclusively on youtube.com/International Radio Report. This is a program that actually we did a Christmas special, Gilles, before you were around on the show. A number of years back with a friend of mine, Alan Roberts. We were actually in studio that day on Christmas Day, and we decided to put a special show together for our listeners. This year, we're doing it a little bit differently. New technology, new things to play with, and new ways to do things. So we thought we would update the show, add a few things to it, and put something special together for everyone for the holidays. So first off, happy holidays, everybody. We welcome you to the show.
Happy holidays. And of course, this is a lot of fun to be part of this special and to recreate some of the special that was done in the past. And of course, now that we have it online also, which is cool, is that it's going to stay available for the years to come.
We hope you'll enjoy it. What we've done is gone through, I guess, the history of broadcasting at Christmas time.
Yep.
And we've pulled out a bunch of different clips and special features that aired on various radio stations, local stations around the world, on international radio, wherever we could find them. And we've pulled together some clips. We've got a little bit of background on each of these clips to tell you as well. So look at it as entertainment and education about radio as well, and the history of radio when it comes to Christmas. I think it's an important time of year. Lots of people tune into the radio for whatever reason at this time of the year. We'll actually have some firsthand stories from some people of how radio has meant something to them at Christmas. We'll have those later on in the show. So I guess we'll get started with going way, way back to Christmas Eve of 1906. And that date is special because it was the first broadcast on radio done by a Canadian, Reginald Aubrey Fessenden. 1906. We don't have an audio clip for obvious reasons. There have been some recreations that you might find online, but on Christmas Eve 1906, Canadian Reginald Aubrey Fessenden broadcast the first music and voice program transmitted over long distances. Transmitting from a station he built on Brant Rock, Massachusetts, Fessenden's program included 2 musical selections, a poem and a short talk. Wireless operators as far away as Virginia and ship wireless operators within a radius of several hundred miles heard this first radio program. Although the idea of radio receivers as household items was not even imaginable until World War I and the relaxation of military restrictions on radio use, Fessenden's Christmas Eve broadcast was an important early demonstration of radio capability. Fessenden had a varied background that led to this achievement, which IEEE has designated a milestone in electrical engineering and computing. At various points in his life, he worked as a school principal, chief chemist in Thomas Edison's research laboratories, chief electrician at Westinghouse Electric Company, and a professor of electrical engineering. In 1900, he began to conduct experiments in wireless telegraphy in the United States Weather Bureau and became interested in voice transmission. He developed a principle of amplitude modulation, AM. AM superimposed electric waves vibrating at the frequency of sound waves on a constant radio frequency, resulting in the modulation of the amplitude of the radio waves into the shape of sound waves and a steady transmission. In the years after the broadcast, Fessenden himself remained active in scientific research. He worked on wireless signals, radio compasses, and submarine signaling devices, as well as long-distance radio transmission. So I guess we have Fessenden to thank for people being able to hear us and everyone else over the radio.
Yes, and amplitude modulation is something we still, more than 100 years today, use for broadcasting.
Yeah, he actually played his own violin on those broadcasts in 1906, and people out on ships especially were like, wow, where's this weird stuff coming from? So we thank him for his pioneering in radio broadcasting.
Absolutely.
And as we said, unfortunately, we don't have any clip of that. But look around on the internet. You can find some recreations of it, which are quite fun to listen to. So let's move forward a little bit.
Yes, we have His Majesty King George V that had the first ever royal Christmas message. And it was written by Rudyard Kipling in 1932. So this we have, of course, a audio clip of, and the first ever royal Christmas message was, of course, broadcast live over wireless from Sandringham by King Emperor George V in 1932. And let's listen to this.
Through one of the marvels of modern science, I am enabled this Christmas Day to speak to all my peoples throughout the empire. I take it as a good omen that wireless should have reached its present perfection at a time when the empire has been linked in closer union. For it offers us immense possibilities to make that union closer still. It may be that our future will lay upon us more than one stern test. Our past will have taught us how to meet it unshaken. For the present, the work to which we are all equally bound is to arrive at a reasoned tranquility within our borders, to regain prosperity without self-seeking, and to carry with us those whom the burden of past years has disheartened or overborne. My life's aim has been to serve, as I might, towards those ends. Your loyalty, your confidence in me has been my abundant reward. I speak now from my home and from my heart to you all. To men and women so cut off by the snows, the desert, or the sea, that only voices out of the air can reach them. To those cut off from fuller life by blindness, sickness, or infirmity, and to those who are celebrating this day with their children and their grandchildren, to all, to each, I wish a happy Christmas. God bless you.
Next, we're going to move you forward a few more years and go to 1937. And 'Tis the Season, Christmas on the Radio. This was episode number 1 of a radio show called The Cinnamon Bear. Another enduring radio tradition emerged from the 1930s of much humbler origins. In 1937, producer Lindsay McHarry and writer Glanville Heish developed an inexpensive children's serial for the Christmas season for distribution by the Radio Transcription Company of America to sponsor in local markets. Such programs rarely had a lengthy shelf life, but something about the Cinnamon Bear captured the attention of both listeners and sponsors. And in nearly 8 decades, the serial hasn't missed a Christmas. Somewhere, every December, Patty O'Cinnamon leads Judy and Jimmy on their search for the missing silver star. And thanks to internet, we have a clip of that for you as well.
And here's the Cinnamon Bear.
This is the story of the Cinnamon Bear and his very marvelous adventures with Judy and Jimmy Barton. But we can't very well meet the Cinnamon Bear until we meet Judy and Jimmy. They are twins, and they live in a big, old-fashioned house. At this very minute, they're in the upstairs sitting room. And from all I can hear, Judy and Jimmy are busily engaged in that very pleasant task of writing letters to Santa Claus. Let's listen.
How are you getting along with your letter, Jimmy?
Oh, pretty well. I guess I've got about everything down here.
Now, don't go asking for everything the way you did last year.
Oh, you girls are all alike. I bet you if we counted the things in your letter and the things in mine, you'd have the most.
I bet you I wouldn't either.
You would.
Well, I won't argue about it. But I bet you my letter's more dignified than yours. Now, stop bothering me so I can finish it. Let me see. P.S. And Santa, there's just one thing more I'd like. A nice red V.L. Well, that's not right. Jimmy, how do you spell velocipede?
Velocipede. V-A... Oh, you're too old for a velocipede anyway.
I guess maybe you're right.
Judy, Jimmy.
Yes, Mother.
Here, Mother.
Have you finished those letters to Santa Claus yet?
Yes.
That's good, because we've something very important to do.
What's that, Mother?
What do you suppose I have in these cardboard boxes here?
I know. Our Christmas tree ornaments.
Yes. And you promised us we could help you go through them to see if any of them were broken.
Right.
Oh, let's hurry, Mother. I can't wait.
Just a minute. I'll put them right here on the table.
Oh, boy.
I hope that little pink Santa Claus didn't get broken.
We'll see.
Oh, aren't they beautiful?
I'll say. I like those big gold ones especially.
Everything seems to be pretty much in order. All the tinsel is here, the lights. Everything seems to be here except...
Except what, Mother?
Well, I can't see the silver star anywhere.
You mean the big one we always put way up on top of the tree?
Yes, but I don't see it in any of the boxes.
Oh, gee, Mom. I'd feel most awful if anything happened to that old silver star.
Me too. Well, we've had it on top of our tree for years and years. Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without the silver star.
Now, don't cry, Judy. It's probably just misplaced. I remember Uncle Jed took some things up to the attic last year after Christmas. Perhaps he put it away up there.
It is always interesting with these clips. The feel that we have from that time period is so different. There's something about it that, I don't know, it just amazes me every time I listen to something like that.
I like the music that they play in the background, and sometimes you have sound effects going on that are done by a little crew of people who usually stood off to the side somewhere, using different tools and props to make different sounds in the background on radio, all painting a picture in your mind.
Yes.
Because obviously no video attached to it.
Next, we are going to famous comedic personality, which is Bob Hope, that had his Christmas show in 1938. Bob Hope Christmas Show with guests Blondie and Dagwood. Original air date is December 20th, 1938. This was Bob's first Christmas show in his Fessenden era. He was already established on NBC's Tuesday night, scheduled at 10 p.m. Eastern at the time, following the Johnson's Wax program with Fibber McGee and Molly. Fibber McGee and Company at the time, until Marion Jordan returned in the spring of 39. Arthur Lake and Penny Singleton's initial Blondie movie had just been released and were to star in a weekly radio edition the following year. So we have a small portion of a much longer show, but nice to hear a little bit of Bob Hope, Christmas Show, 1938.
The Fessenden Show, starring Bob Hope.
Hi, folks.
The time is here, and Santa Claus is near. Hang up your ear, Bob Hope is here to fill it full of cheer.
Aw, thank you so much. How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? This is Bob Hope, and to assure you of having a white Christmas, tonight we're only going to lay the whites of the eggs. It's nice Christmas weather we're having here. It's been raining so hard here this past week, I hear Santa Claus is trading his reindeer and sleigh in for 3 seals and a surfboard. I drove my car downtown today to do my Christmas slopping, and a cop gave me a ticket for crossing the street against the tide. Instead of a Christmas tree, we're going to put a lighthouse in our living room this year. Boy, and it was really wet today. I went into a bakery to buy a 2-pound chocolate cake, and when I got home, I had 3 gallons of cocoa. Yes, I did some more Christmas shopping today. I want to send my uncle something he'll like. How do you wrap up a saloon? On Christmas Day, my uncle's going to be Santa Claus in a nudist colony. They sent him his costume today, a long white beard and a bottle of Mercurochrome. If it's a cold day, he won't need the Mercurochrome. Shirley Temple was in the store today. She asked Santa Claus for a doll. Then Santa Claus asked her if she could get him the right answers to the movie quiz. I bought a present for my little niece, Bessie, a doll that will hit back. It's a mama doll. It's a mama doll. On the way out of the store, a guy bumped into me, and the doll said, Mom, and the guy looked at me and said, Pardon me, madam. I wanted to buy a tie. I told the clerk I wanted to see something in stripes, so he brought out my brother from Alcatraz. The warden up there told the boys it would be nice if they could get a tree for Christmas, so 10 of the prisoners went to Yellowstone Park to get one. That was 6 years ago, and they haven't found the tree yet. My brother always tries to come home for the Christmas holidays.
You can see how popular I think radio was at that time, because we're running clips of Christmas shows 1932, 1937, 1938. Now we're into 1939. So it's really a golden era of radio plays and stories on the radio. And you sort of get that image of people sitting around the radio set, in the living room or near the Christmas tree listening to these stories. If you listen to the International Radio Report, you know that we don't normally have commercials or ads on our show. But for this Christmas special, we'd like to thank the fictitious company of Jordan's Couches and Love Seats, who are going to be sponsoring this show for us. So let's take a short break and hear a few words from Jordan's Couches and Love Seats.
Christmas has arrived. Hold your loved ones tight and let the Yule log burn bright, for this is a time for heartfelt fellowship. Visit with neighbors and friends, and while you're in their homes, be sure to fill your pockets with their homemade baked goods, because you know that when you go home, Mom will be drunk, and the only thing even close to fresh cookies will be the lingering odor of Pillsbury unrolled out tube cookie log, burnt to a crisp on the barbecue. From everyone at Jordan's Couches and Love Seat, a very sweet holiday season. Smell the gingerbread baking. Watch as the winter birds frolic on the icy branches, and then listen for the sound of jingle bells. The holiday season has arrived. As you share gifts and treasured family stories by the fire, also share that weed your juvenile delinquent's friend's father gave you, boys. Put a smile on the face of even grumpy Grandma Jameson this Christmas. After all, 'tis the season of giving. Give your family good conversation about aliens taking over Santa's sleigh. All the best to you and yours this Christmas from Jordan's Couches and Love Seat. People all over the world are saying Merry Christmas this time of year. Mela Kalikimaka, Sung Tan Chukha. And how about Feliz Navidad? That's how they say Merry Christmas in Mexico. You know, Mexico, where your dad and his mistress are celebrating the holidays without you and your family this year. He calls it, unfortunately, I have to work for the holidays. But you know better. You know there's no need for Zamboni drivers this time of year in Cabo San Lucas. This holiday message brought to you by Jordan's Couches and Love Seat. Joyeux Noël.
So we're up to 1939, and this is a really famous broadcast. It's been recreated in movies and television specials and just about everywhere. It's from 1939, the CBS Campbell Playhouse broadcast of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, as performed on radio by some really famous people at the time, actor Lionel Barrymore, and narrated by the famous Orson Welles, famous for his War of the Worlds broadcast a couple decades later. And this was done with the Mercury Theater Group. And we'll play a little bit of that for you as well.
Good evening. This is Orson Welles. There are clearly a number of ways in which A Christmas Carol could be introduced. Myself, I am most struck by the happy fortune that enables us on this Christmas Eve to present Mr. Lionel Barrymore, the best-loved actor of our time, in the world's best-loved Christmas story, A Christmas Carol. There is, I think, in all America, nothing more eagerly awaited, more firmly rooted in the hearts of the radio family that numbers millions, but this yearly performance of A Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol, as Charles Dickens wrote it, has by common consent long been a classic. Mr. Lionel Barrymore's appearance in it is rapidly becoming one.
Now, that broadcast featured, as we said, the narration by Orson Welles and Lionel Barrymore in the lead role. Few actors ever gave more meaning to the character of miserly Ebenezer Scrooge than Lionel Barrymore, who first took on the radio role in 1934. Originally aired live on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1939. That broadcast, which you heard, will live in the memories of those who heard it for a lifetime.
And we move on to something that was played in 1956, a song by the Goons, "I'm Walking Backwards for Christmas," a 1956 song written by Spike Milligan. The classic Goon song, "I'm Walking Backwards for Christmas," was originally sung during an episode to fill time during a musician's strike in 1956. The Goons featured Spike Milligan, Harry Succumbe, Peter Sellers, Michael Bentine.
This song actually was suggested to us by our friend Alan Roberts, who grew up as a child in Wales, and then listening to the radio, being a fan of radio. This is a song that comes back to him every Christmas. So we wanted to make sure we featured this song. It's comical. I think you'll get a laugh out of it.
Yes, no.
I'm walking backwards for Christmas across the Irish Sea. I'm walking backwards for Christmas. It's the only thing for me. I've tried walking sideways and walking to the front, but people just look at me and say it's a publicity stunt. I'm walking backwards for Christmas to prove that I love you. An immigrant lad loved an Irish colleen from a Dublin's Galway boy. He longed for her arms, but she spurned his charms, and she sailed o'er the foam away. She left the lad by himself on his own, all alone, a sorrowing. And sadly he dreamed, or at least that's the way it seemed, buddy, that an angel choir to him, that angel choir did the same. I'm walking backwards for Christmas across the Irish Sea. I'm walking backwards for Christmas. It's the finest thing for me. And so I've tried walking sideways and walking to the front, but people just laughed and said it's a publicity stunt. So I'm walking backwards for Christmas to prove that I love you. Thank you. And for an encore...
Yeah, I didn't think much of that. I think that my side was better.
Get that child out of here.
We move to originally 1964, but we have a recording that was from 1965, according to the lead-in to this. It's a famous radio news broadcaster, Paul Harvey, no relation to me, but Paul Harvey, a famous voice on the radio, and it's him at the North Pole. A veteran on-the-road reporter, Dennis Daly, goes way back into his archives for a rare recording fed to the ABC radio network stations for broadcast on Christmas Eve 1965. Paul Harvey reports live, quote unquote, from the North Pole with the takeoff of Santa's sleigh. And the sound effects in this, I think you'll really love. He steps outside the studio and the wind is blowing and the snow is falling. And it's a great piece of broadcasting. Paul Harvey, I think, is one of my all-time favorite announcers on radio. You'll probably recognize the voice right away as you hear it.
Now for something rather rare. And something rather enchanting. It's one of the oldest tapes I have. Christmas Eve, 1964. ABC fed a live broadcast from the North Pole with Paul Harvey, who you will see turned out to be quite an actor in this. My research tells me that it had been done several years before and was repeated on various Christmas Eves. Not too many people have a tape of it. There are a few others here on YouTube I have found. Once I called ABC Radio to ask if they had a better quality copy so I could use it on the air. They said, "You have a copy of it?" I said, "Yes." They had just redone it and had to fake the script because they couldn't find the original of the show. So here we go. It's Christmas Eve afternoon, December 24th. 1965, as the ABC radio network goes live to the North Pole, and Paul Harvey.
Here at Santa's Polar Headquarters, it is at this moment just past 11 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, Christmas Eve. It is dark. It has been dark since September. It is cold. That is, to me, it's cold. It's 64 degrees below zero outside our broadcast shack. This, I understand, is comparatively mild, but it's snowing tonight. It does not snow here often. Though there's always adequate ice on the polar cap, I understand from the Kringles that they have less snow here than we customarily have back in Chicago. Moments from now, I'm going to step outside this enclosure. The windows are so steamy and iced up so that you and I will have a better look at the takeoff of Santa's sleigh, which is presently in the final loading process. In the interim, and in behalf of the Hastings Manufacturing Company, which is making this remote origination possible, let me wish for you and for those you love everything that's good for you. And you filling station men back in the United States, take tomorrow off and eat too much and have fun. But before you lock up for tonight, be sure your regular customers have a can of Case-Eye tune-up in the crankcase so they'll be sure of a quick start tomorrow. You'll be interested to know our Case-Eye is good for the little engines, too. The generator, which is making possible this broadcast from the North Pole, is one of a battery of generators which powers Santa's workshop, and I am assured that the lubrication of these engine parts at temperatures as low as 100 degrees below zero is ensured with Case-Eye additives. How about that? In the faint light of this Arctic night, I'm having some difficulty inside this radio shack with this glass window visibility again, so though my remarks may be less intelligible in the 45-knot wind that's swirling through the Santa land tonight, I'm going to step outside presently for a better view. The workshops opposite resembled a beehive when I arrived late this afternoon, your time, but one by one, the lights in those long buildings have been going out. Ladies and gentlemen, I just received word from the good St. Nicholas himself that his ETA over the USA will be 1:53 a.m. That's just, a little more than 4 hours from now. That means tailwinds are anticipated. We'd better get out on the loading apron beside the runway. If you can give me a little more mic cord, Dave Cole. Dave is another of the crew to whom we're indebted for absenting themselves from their stateside families this Christmas Eve to make this. By George! Can you still hear me? Commander Bumble. Can you hear? I can see you fellas through the swirling snow, but I'm going to assume that we're on the air. Santa's sleigh is still alongside the loading dock. Helpers are fussing with the 8 reindeer harness. Dunder and Blitzen and Dancer, as previously announced in the States, Rudolph is not going to lead the hitch this year. For the first time in 10 Christmases, Rudolph, whose red nose was a prime navigational aid for several of those years, is lame with a slightly injured fetlock, will stay behind. The newer navigational gear is under the front seat of the great sleigh. Radio contact will be maintained with remote control weather stations on the floating ice islands. These automatic devices have been made available by the United States Air Force Actually, the sleigh will be in voice communication with Point Barrow shortly after gaining cruising altitude, but that's almost 1,000 miles away. I passed Point Barrow just as... Oh, here comes St. Nicholas! Here comes in the yellow lighted doorway of the Kringle residence. He's kissing Mrs. Kringle. He's kissing Mrs. Kringle, and she's smiling. She always worries until he's home safe, she says, but she's smiling. Look at the workshop elves. There must be hundreds, I erroneously indicated moments ago that there was no activity around here when the lights were going out, but the elves are all around the loading platform. Santa's waving and moving toward his sleigh on the steel net runway. It's still snowing slightly. Certainly those of us away from our families must be excused for saying this is a most momentous experience. I'm being motioned closer to the microphone. I can't get any closer. You take this thing up so the cold metal would not stick to my lips. And is this better? I'll hold the hood of my parka up here so that I'm cutting the wind a little bit. The mooring hawsers have been relaxed and tossed aboard now. As Santa's sleigh draws up this way, we can see the load of, oh my goodness, we have been assured it's a record-smashing capacity this Christmas, but the sleigh is piled approximately 40, maybe 45 feet high with packages. There's a tarp drawn tight. The elves here. Santa's waving. So long, Santa. Excellent snow landing conditions have been promised down through the Maritime provinces. Rooftop landings are practicable any weather within it. And they're off. They're down the steel net runway, and they're off. I can see the running lights. I'm losing sight. Mrs. Santa is outside the door in just a house dress. My goodness, she's waving. Santa's waving and saying something. Did you get it? I got it. I got it. Santa, who is now headed your way, had this to say: Merry Christmas to all, and to all, good night. From the North Pole, we return you now to your regularly scheduled programs.
Merry Christmas from the ABC Radio Network.
Amazing. Paul Harvey on the spot, live from the North Pole for all the kiddies, from Christmas Eve, 1965.
I've heard this recording several times over the past decades, probably. And every time it's something you sit down and you cannot not listen to this. You have to.
We hope you're enjoying this Christmas special of the International Radio Report. It's time for another word from our fictitious sponsor, Jordan's Couches and Love Seats.
The turkey slowly roasts, the tree sheds a needle here and there, and the halls are decked with glistening fringe. Christmas is now in full swing. Enjoy the company of friends and neighbors by cherishing time together and by having a key party. Swap your wives or husbands and experience someone different this year. Because after all, isn't sharing what the holiday season is all about? Merry Christmas to you and your wife, and his wife and her husband, from Jordan's Couches and Love Seat. Hear the jingle bells? How delightful. Hear the winter birds frolicking? Of course you do. That's what Christmas is all about. Glorious sounds of cheer, hope, and peace. While you listen in to all the sounds of the season, be sure to do as little Jimmy does and block out the sounds of his mother committing adultery with their gardener Juan. There's no need for that. May you be overcome with joy from all the sounds of the season. Merry Christmas and happy listening from Jordan's Couches and Love Seat. What an exciting time of year! The holidays are among us, and Jordan's Couches and Love Seat hope that this festive season finds you with good friends and family gathered near. But not too near, because we all know creepy Uncle Malcolm isn't allowed to be too near. In fact, after his pants-dropping / leg-humping episode last Christmas, the dog is jealous of his mad skills, and Mom and Dad have placed a restraining order on him. Ha 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 ha! Here's to a happy and now safe holiday season to you and yours from Jordan's Couches and Love Seat.
We have something that is, I gotta say, listening to it is very touching and very interesting. It's Simon and Garfunkel that in 1966 had a silent night with a mix-in of the 7 o'clock news from 1966. And so they call it 7 o'clock news silent night. Is the 12th and final track on Parsley, Sage, Rosemary and Thyme, a 1966 album by Simon and Garfunkel. The track consists of an overdubbing of the two contrasting recordings, a simple arrangement of the Christmas Carol Silent Night, and a simulated 7 o'clock news bulletin of the actual events of August 3rd, 1966. The Silent Night track consists of Simon and Garfunkel singing the first verse twice over, accompanied by a piano. The voice of the newscaster is that of Charlie O'Donnell. then a radio disc jockey. As the track progresses, the song becomes fainter and the news report louder. Matthew Greenwald calls the effect positively chilling. Bruce Eder describes the track as a grim and ironic and prophetic comment on the state of the United States in 1966. And let's listen to this. I gotta say, it is shocking.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round young virgin
In Los Angeles today, Lenny Bruce died of what was believed to be an overdose of narcotics. Bruce was 42 years old. Dr. Martin Luther King says he does not intend to cancel plans for open housing March Sunday into the Chicago suburb of Cicero. Cook County Sheriff Richard O'Louis asked King to call off the march, and the police in Cicero said they would ask the National Guard be called out if it is held. King, now in Atlanta, Georgia, plans to return to Chicago Tuesday. In Chicago, Richard Speck, accused murderer of 9 student nurses, was brought before a grand jury today for indictment. The nurses were found stabbed and strangled in their Chicago apartment. In Washington, the atmosphere was tense today as a special subcommittee of the House Committee on Un-American Activities continued its probe into anti-Vietnam War protests. Demonstrators were forcibly evicted from the hearings when they began chanting anti-war slogans. Former Vice President Richard Nixon says that unless there is a substantial increase in the present war effort in Vietnam, the U.S. should look forward to 5 more years of war. In a speech before the Convention of the Veterans of Foreign Wars in New York, Nixon also said opposition to the war in this country is the greatest single weapon working against the U.S. That's the 7 o'clock edition of the news. Good night.
Our next clip for you comes from outer space, actually, and it is in 1968 when the Apollo 8 mission was up in space. On December the 24th, Christmas Eve, 1968, astronauts Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders entered into lunar orbit above the Apollo 8 spacecraft. That evening, in a live radio and television transmission, Borman reads a passage from the book of Genesis.
It's now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness.
And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day.
God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
I remember hearing this actually when it happened, and it was broadcast everywhere. I think just about every radio station and television station picked up this transmission as the three astronauts were going into orbit around the moon. And they trade off in the recording. You'll hear them go from Borman to Lovell to Anders. It's really a very famous recording, very historic.
It is very interesting also, the background noise or kind of audio buzzing, if you want, that comes from the fact that, it's all, very long distance because they're in space, and I believe they're orbiting the moon at the time.
Right.
And so there's something about that recording that just adds a whole new dimension to it. That is just amazing when you listen to it. And next we go to something that actually is going to be available again this year over the CBC radio. The Shepherd, read by Alan Maitland. We have a clip from 1979 here. But if you want to listen to it again, the CBC will broadcast it on December the 24th at 6:30 p.m. local time in each time zone. So depending on what time zone you're going to choose, every time zone will have it at 6:30 p.m. It will be in the As It Happens show. And this, of course, on December 24th is going to be rebroadcast once again. So it's like every year they do this on the CBC radio. Here we'll have a few minutes clip of it. The Shepherd relates the story of de Havilland vampire pilot going home on Christmas Eve 1957, whose aircraft suffers a complete electrical failure en route from RAF Celle in northern Germany to RAF Lakenheath in Suffolk. Lost in fog and low on fuel, he is met and led or shepherded to a disused RAF dispersal field by the pilot of a de Havilland Mosquito fighter bomber of World War II vintage, who has apparently been sent up to guide him in. His attempts to find a rational explanation for his eventual rescue prove as troublesome as his experience. However, sometime after he lands at the airfield, the fictional RAF Minton, he learns that his savior was Johnny Canova, a wartime RAF pilot who had been stationed at Minton and who had guided crippled bombers home. The vampire pilot also learns that Kavanagh disappeared over the North Sea in his Mosquito on his last mission on Christmas Eve 1943, exactly 14 years before. Since 1979, the story has been broadcast annually in Canada on the CBC Radio 1 news program, As It Happens. Read by the late Alan Maitland, the recording always airs on the last episode on or before Christmas Eve. So like we said, it's going to happen again this year on December 24th, 6:30 p.m. on each time zone in Canada.
Yeah, it's really a very interesting, mysterious type of story, with this story of a missing pilot whose ghost, I guess, is up there guiding lost pilots or pilots in danger, in need of help. So it's a really great story to listen to. I think it runs for 20 minutes or half an hour or so. As Gilles said, we're just going to play a clip of it for you. And if you do have a chance, go and listen to it. You'll be able to get it online as well from CBC
Absolutely.
Radio. So if you're not close to a CBC radio station, wherever you might live, you might want to try to listen online as well.
Holidays are all about traditions, and here at As It Happens, this is one of our favorites. Every Christmas Eve, it is our pleasure to bring you Alan Maitland's reading of The Shepherd by Frederick Forsyth. The short story was written as a Christmas tale, and a suspenseful one. It tells the story of an RAF pilot who is flying home for Christmas from Germany in 1957. Fog sets in, and all radio communication is lost. Here now is Alan Maitland with The Shepherd.
While waiting for Control Tower to clear me for takeoff, I glanced out through the cockpit canopy at the German countryside, white and crisp beneath the December moon. Behind me lay the boundary fence of the Royal Air Force Base. Far away, to my right, the airfield tower stood up like a glowing candle. Inside the tower, I knew all was warmth and merriment, the staff waiting only for my departure to close down and head back to the parties in the mess. Within minutes of my going, the lights would die out, leaving only the flickering red station light beating out in Morse code the name of the station, CELLE, to an unheeding sky. For tonight there would be no wandering aviators to look down and check their bearings. Tonight was Christmas Eve in 1957, and I was a pilot trying to get home for Christmas. My watch read 10:15 by the dim blue glow of the control panel where the rows of dials quivered and danced. It was warm and snug inside the cockpit, the heating turned up full to prevent the perspex icing up. It was like a cocoon, small and warm and safe, shielding me from the bitter cold outside.
Coming up next, one final word today from our fictitious sponsor, Jordan's Couches and Love Seats. We thank them for sponsoring the special edition, Christmas edition of the International Radio Report.
The Yule log blazes, casting a flickering glow into the memories of Christmas past. It also flickers a spark, which ignites the curtains in the living room on fire, burning down the Christmas tree and those gifts you literally gave your right arm to get your hand on. Oh look, your prosthetic arm just melted. Happy holidays, and may the peace and quiet of a cheap hotel room bring you every joy this Christmas. From Jordan's Couches and Love Seat. When you see a man in a Santa cap ringing a bell for donations this holiday season, be sure to stop by and say hello. Don't you dare go for that wallet, though, because even though you have plenty of money, you know that money is going towards your son's new Wii U gamepad controller that removes the traditional barriers between you, your games, and your TV by creating a second window into the video game world. Oh, and your son is only 2 weeks old. Perfect! Merry Christmas to all from Jordan's Couches and Love Seat. Can you smell the turkey roasting away? Guests will soon arrive. The holiday season is now upon us. You do everything to ensure your guests are taken care of. So make sure you put those peanut crumbs into the gravy, because no one really likes Uncle Rory anyway. And how fun would it be for little Janie and little Bobby to see Uncle Rory blow up like a two-man dinghy covered in hive-like barnacles? Oh my God, so precious! Happy holiday dining to all from Jordan's Couches and Love Seat.
That is a really nice selection of Christmas-related clips that we have for you. We hope you've enjoyed those. One of the things that we've wanted to do as well, and we did it when we first put a Christmas special together, was to ask some of our listeners to pass along some stories that they might have, or memories they have about radio and Christmas time through the holidays. And we've been fortunate enough to get a number of them sent in to us, a few that we had for the previous show, which we'll reread on this episode. And Gilles, you've managed to get some new ones from some of your people who follow you on your YouTube broadcasts, and I think we've got some pretty good stories to relate to people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Some really nice stuff in here, and beautiful stories, and touching stories, actually.
So first off, we're going to go down to Cape Cod. Our friend Stephen Wood in Harwich, Massachusetts, wrote to us and says, in the early 70s, when I had just become enthralled with radio and long-distance reception, I received a realistic DX160. Imagine that. That was one of my first quote-unquote real radios as well. I think a lot of us. He received that as a gift from his parents. Needless to say, this receiver brought the sounds of Christmas from all over the world into my room. The wide variety of music and stories that I heard kindled an interest in culture, politics, and folklore that remains to this day. I would have to say the highlight of the Christmas was the festive sound of Christmas music that I heard from the many Latin American radio stations that populated the tropical shortwave bands at the time. Stations such as Radio Rumbos, Radio Barquisimeto, Radio Continente, and many others brought great enjoyment to me and then fond memories today. A very Merry Christmas to all, and a happy and prosperous and peaceful New Year. Again, that's from Stephen Wood down in Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
I got one here from one of our loyal listeners, David, KJ4CMY is his amateur call sign. He's located in Georgia in the United States, and he's got a little Christmas story that is related to the CBC in some way, or to Radio Canada. And so he says that my favorite Christmas memory comes from Radio Canada International. They did a feature on Reginald Fessenden and his Christmas Eve broadcast. He had a woman singing a song. Several radio operators who were used to only hearing dots and dashes said they heard the voice of an angel. I often wonder what it would be like to have been one of those operators hearing a human voice on the radio for the first time. I think of this every Christmas. So this is definitely something that must be quite amazing to live through. You know, when we talk going back in time, if we could, to events like this, especially us as radio fans, would be a lot of fun to just witness and listen to all of these original broadcasts and first times ever.
Yeah, that story ties in nicely to our very first item on the show today about the Fessenden broadcast in 1906. So it obviously has had an impact on a lot of people over the years, and we wouldn't be doing what we're doing today, I guess, if it wasn't for his discoveries. So that's really great. We move next to one of our CIDX members down in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. His name is Andy Wallace. KA1 Gulf Tango Tango is his amateur radio call. He says, I'm happy to relate a couple of stories illustrating how radio gifts can bring people closer. I started shortwave listening about 1976 when I was 12. Somehow I heard about DX according to NASWA, a book by Ed Shaw. I asked for that sometime in the fall of the year, and my mother wrote a check so I could send away for it. Time passed, and it seemed to never arrive. She had intercepted it and wrapped it up for me as a Christmas gift. I was really happy to receive it, and I read this little book over and over, marveling at all the exotic DX countries written about in the book. It was also illustrated with exotic receivers I had never heard of, like the Yaesu FR101S and the HQ180A. A year later, I got a 1977 World Radio TV Handbook for Christmas, and again, I would read it over and over and highlight all the DX targets I would love to hear. Over time, I did log a lot of these stations. I finally joined the NASWA Club in 1979, and through that club, I was able to make contact with local shortwave listeners. I made a network of radio friends that I have kept to this day. In 1981, I finally got my ham call, the KA1GTT. My family was full of hams. Uncles, my brother, my dad, Bob W1HH. My dad always loved building equipment, and his heyday was when he assembled and used a raft of Heathkit gear in his station. As time went on, Heathkit faded away, but my father's love of kits was still alive. I surprised him in the early 2000s for Christmas with an Elecraft K1 transceiver. This was a 4-band CW-only rig. He was so proud of having built that rig, and he loved using it on the air. We made contact with each other many times with him using it. I'm so glad that for several years I worked my dad through straight key night on New Year's Eve. We exchanged QSLs for it also. So a lot of connections to the holiday season and Andy with his father and all the friends that he's met through radio.
You know, when Christmas arrives, we always have and think of the past and things that happen. And if it's radio related and we are radio fans, there's always a little something special around this time of year for sure.
You know, you might be looking for that special Christmas gift for someone. We have something that just might catch your attention, but again, it's one of our fictitious sponsors. But When you hear it, you might like to order the special Gordon Lightfoot Christmas album. Let's take a listen. But don't call the number that's given out in the commercial. I think you'll catch it.
Noel, 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 Lord is the King of Israel.
Presenting a Gordon Lightfoot Christmas. All your favorite holiday classics, sung by the one and only Gordon Lightfoot.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. Let it snow, no place to go. Let it snow. Here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane.
Get a Gordon Lightfoot Christmas on 3 LPs or 2 cassettes for just $19.95.
Ooh, hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Santa Claus is coming to town, it's coming to town. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose.
A Gordon Lightfoot Christmas is not sold in stores. Here's how to order. To order a Gordon Lightfoot Christmas, call 1-800-GORDMAS. That's 1-800-467-3627. Or send $19.95 for 3 LPs or 2 cassettes plus $3.50 shipping and handling to A Gordon Lightfoot Christmas, 10 8th Avenue, Some Mill in Wisconsin.
Away in a manger, no crib for a bed, the little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. The stars in the night sky looked down where he lay, the little Lord Jesus asleep on the hay.
I have a story from Gordon Lyle, which is also somebody that follows a lot of what we do on the radio. It's a very touching story and very nice read. So get your maybe get your tissues out, because you might have a little tear here. So his quick little story is that in 1970, my mom died from ovarian cancer just before my 4th birthday. I never got to know her because I was so young when she died. Throughout the 70s, my father would tell me different things about my mom, what she liked, the kind of person she was, and just different little things. He told me her favorite song was Unchained Melody by the Writer's Brother. She would listen to that, and she and my father would dance together in the living room. In December 1980, a week before Christmas, I turned 14 years old. We had a local radio station that had an all-request show from 7 to 10 p.m. every Saturday night. I called the station, told them my name and my story about my mom and how she died on this day 10 years ago. I would like to request her favorite song and the song her and my father would dance around the house to. That song is Unchained Melody. The DJ said he would be happy to play that and to tell the story behind the request. I had my father come into the room and I had my radio on. The DJ told the story, said this song is dedicated to Gordon's late mother, Jean, who lost her battle with cancer 10 years ago today, and his father. They started playing the song, and for the first time I saw my father cry, which made me tear up also. He was very moved. He gave me a hug and said my mom would have been so proud if she was here. In 1988, I lost my father just short of my 22nd birthday. So he says since then, every year on the day my mom died, I put that song on, and my wife of 30 years and I will dance together in our living room in front of the picture of my parents that hangs on the wall. So that's one very touching and beautiful story.
Wow, that's great. A nice connection to radio there, and a meaningful connection as well.
Yep.
So thanks very much for passing that story along to us. We have one other story from a good friend of ours, John Fisher, down in North Chelmsford, Massachusetts, called ham call sign KC1FTJ. And John is a great person to talk to. He's got so many great stories, and just such a passionate love for radio and everything related to it. So he sent this along. And when you want connection to Christmas, this one's got all sorts of them. So I think you'll enjoy it. It was Christmas of 1971. For years, I'd been using my father's little GE transistor radio, which he bought in 1965. It covered the AM band only. During the day, it was tuned to WPRO 630 in Providence, Rhode Island. That was the state's big top 40 legacy station back then. However, FM was beginning to make inroads on the pop and rock music scene. I begged my folks for an AM-FM transmitter radio for Christmas. Much to my joy and pleasure, Santa rewarded me with a little Westinghouse AM-FM transistor, model RPF5035A. The radio had a carrying strap and a little whip antenna for FM. This allowed me to tune into those dangerous college FM stations like WBRU at Brown University and WRIU, the University of Rhode Island. All sorts of new music, not played on the top 40 stations in Rhode Island, was now available to me. At night, I would tune around, often settling on WKBW, Buffalo's Jackson Armstrong, who was more fun to listen to than the music he played. Little did I know, I was listening to a radio legend. Little did he know he was also DXing, but he doesn't mention it. That's listening to cities and stations from other places than your own. When I would visit my grandparents in northern Rhode Island, within sight of the Massachusetts border, I could hear WBCN FM from Boston. That was awesome. 2 years later at Christmas, my parents presented me with a multi-band radio, an Audiosonic, probably a knockoff name. Besides picking up AM and FM and the Boston stations, I could now hear various public service bands. A new world was opened. I was able to hear several air traffic control towers from TF Green Airport, Westerly Airport, and Quonset Point Naval Air Station. Since we lived a mile away from the Navy base, I could often see the planes that the tower was talking to. In addition, I could hear the local police, the 2-meter band hams, Penn Central railroads, taxis, and various businesses such as the local oil company. These two unassuming radios were amongst my most treasured Christmas presents. They led me into the shortwave DX SWL hobby, public service monitoring, and decades later, I would become a third-generation ham radio operator in my family with the call letters KC1 FTJ. Through the radio hobby, I met many people, both in the U.S. and Canada, who have become lifelong, very close friends. Were it not for these two radios, which he received at Christmas, none of this might have happened. I still have both of those radios. They are in mint condition and work just fine. It is still fun to turn them on and to think of 4 decades earlier when I turned them on for the first time. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Wow. Nice
Such
story.
great connections to radio and how much it means to so many different people in so many different ways.
Absolutely. And I have one last little story here from Helmuth. And he says, my ongoing Christmas memory is listening to the BBC World Service broadcast of the Christmas Eve Festival of 9 Lessons and Carols from King's College, Cambridge. I'm not religious, but there is something special and very peaceful about this at Christmas. I can just lower the lighting, play a video of a log fire burning brightly and crackling, and sit back and listen to the broadcast for the hour along with a small glass of something to sip. Christmas greetings to all on your channel and, of course, on every platform of radio fun. So nice little story of, there's a lot of broadcasts, actually. We have a lot of special broadcasts, I think, that people can over time relate to on different, services. The BBC is one. I think we both share one about, the New Year's Eve broadcasts of the BBC and listening in when they actually send the greetings to the different countries around the world. It's always a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah, they also have that pealing of the bells of Big Ben at midnight UTC. I know I always get myself into a lot of trouble here at home because I run around and get the radio lined up for 7 p.m. Eastern and start saying, it's coming, the New Year. And my wife always says, well, it's 5 hours till midnight. I said, no, the New Year starts at 0000 GMT or UTC. And that means turning on the BBC and listening. It's the only time all year where they actually run the 12 bells at midnight. So it's there was a report I read many years ago that they believed that there could be over 1 billion people tuning into the BBC at that specific moment in time.
Wow.
And that's where when I listen to it, I'm sitting there thinking of all these people all around the world at whatever time of day it is in their local time is all doing the exact same thing with their radio at the exact same time. And that is really kind of wild when you think of it.
Yeah, it is neat, and it is a hobby. Radio is often, as we say, a solitary hobby for many of us, but we can imagine in events like that all the people that are gathered in front of their own radios and that we're all doing this at the same time. It is kind of an interesting thing to listen to and to think about.
You had a story to tell us of a Christmas memory related to radio.
Yeah, one with my mom in the 90s. When my mom separated from my dad in the 90s, we lived together for quite a while. And one of the things that first of all happened is I had given her a little Panasonic boombox radio for Christmas because she liked to listen to radio, and she was making herself these little tapes of music that she would pick the songs on the radio she would listen to. But one holiday moment, I would say, that we had pretty much every year was to tune around, mostly on the FM band, because my mom would want to record the songs, and the song quality, the sound quality is better on FM. But we would go through, especially in the last week just before Christmas, and try to get as many Christmas songs and listen to different Christmas songs we never heard before. And even on Christmas Day or New Year's Day, when they play all the different, because now it's like the intense Christmas music moment. And, the radio would play all day, and she would make these tapes of these that I have here, by the way. I have a box of all of these tapes that she made in the 90s, and many of them are written Christmas. And I'm sure that some of them we were together listening to those Christmas songs, and she would press that record button on the boombox to record the songs.
Yeah, I think we've all done some of that at some point in our life.
Yep.
Or recording things off the radio. And
absolutely.
Sometimes bad quality, but
it's
fun to record them.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a couple things that come to mind at this time of the year, radio related as well. One that unfortunately it's kind of disappeared now, but for many, many years when there were actual live broadcasts and live people on the air as opposed to voice tracking and all that sort of thing that we have now, many of the DJs that were further down the priority level at the stations got the unenviable job of having to work on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, or New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. And what I used to like to do was tune across the AM band in particular and try to get these little small town radio stations or what have you who might have a live person on the air on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And, you sort of pictured them being in a small studio somewhere, maybe having an operator with them, a board op or whatever, but they had to fill the time. especially on talk stations where, they didn't have music. Sometimes they'd even let them play music on those stations. But they'd be taking phone calls from people who were out there listening to them, who were maybe alone on Christmas or had a request or wanted to say hello to somebody or what have you. So I always enjoyed listening to those types of broadcasts. Unfortunately, like I said, we don't hear as many of them anymore. Some stations basically shut down for those few days and just run audio tapes and recordings of things and voice track and what have you. So I think that's missing from radio today, is that personal feel of the broadcasts. The other thing I used to like to listen to was the ship-to-shore marine operators. You'd have a lot of people working on ships or people, traveling somewhere, and they were out somewhere in the ocean. And they got through to the radio telephone operator to call home to family or friends or whatever. And of course, they were using radio to talk to each other. As much as they might have thought they were on a telephone, they were obviously not. They were going through a radio phone patch. And you could sit back and just eavesdrop on those conversations. And some of them were really quite interesting and quite moving. We had our own station here that Bell operated called Radio Alma in Quebec. And they did the same sort of thing up to people installed in working camps and fishing camps and wherever, up in the northern parts of Quebec where they didn't have conventional phone systems at the time. And they would relay through radio telephones their messages at that time of the year. So those were always fun things to listen to at Christmas. We don't have as many of them anymore, but there's still a few things like that you might tune into out there. If you have a scanner as well, you can tune in, listen to what's going on in your town or your city at night on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve and Christmas Day. Lots of activity going on out there.
There's a lot of people that have jobs that have them working on these times, on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. And I think radio, for a lot of them, radio has played a big part in being their companion, if you want, during those times. And as you said, one of the things I remember doing quite a lot is listening to my scanner radio and listening to different services, what is it, taxis or towings or whatever, and on the different frequencies, and listening to their conversation. As you notice that, unfortunately for these people, there are people working at that time, and they're not with their family or friends to celebrate. One thing that comes to mind also for me was I remember waiting for the visit to arrive for our Christmas Eve Christmas party. And, you're waiting, so it's like time kind of slows down for some reason when you're waiting for people to arrive. And I remember turning on my radio, and I stumbled one time on because we talk about the Sentinel that there's on the 80 meter band, but I remember just by accident on 20 meters, there was a ham operator, and it was Santa Claus. And he was actually taking last-minute requests from kids for what they would like to have tonight, as he's going to go on that sled, and he needs to know and make sure that the list is accurate. And it was a fun listening experience. I don't know if that is still exists today or if it happened all the years afterwards, but I heard it only once, and that was probably I'd say somewhere in the 90s. But it was a lot of fun to listen to as I was waiting for the visit to arrive for the party.
One thing that I'm not sure if you've ever listened to it, but I'm pretty sure they still do it, and it's available to any radio station that wants to pick it up. Christmas Eve, NORAD does a special update from the North Pole, and they have a website for it. I think it's called NORAD Santa.
Yep.
And they send out periodic reports to the radio stations, if they want to play them, of the progress of Santa and the reindeer sleigh going around the world delivering the presents. And it's done really sort of very formally, as they're tracking and the weather conditions and all that. And it's really quite neat to listen to. So you can check that out on the radio, your local radio station. One of your stations may have that on the air. And one final thing I remember here in Montreal, and it's maybe done elsewhere, We have someone that we know that works with the Montreal Police Force, and the police get the main dispatcher for the Montreal Police Department goes on the air. I believe it's on Christmas Eve, and they put out a call to each patrol out on the roads, and each officer checks in to like a network, like a call-in network, and they each extend their Christmas greetings to everyone else listening on the channel. So that's done here in Montreal every year as well, which was pretty neat to tune into when we didn't have digitized police communications.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But yeah, so there's so many things that go on at this time of year. So we thought it would be a really good idea to put all this stuff together and, hopefully jog your memories a little bit out there listening to some of the things that you liked to do at this time of the year. And we wouldn't be able to put it all into half an hour on our normal over-the-air radio program every week. So having the technology to be able to offer it to you through our Facebook group link and our YouTube channel is a great way to share it with you. So we hope you enjoy it. You'll be able to listen to it over and over as much as you want. And we thank you all for listening throughout the year. And I guess we take our opportunity to wish everybody really great, happy holidays this year. It's going to be another challenging one this year for everybody. But, enjoy it as best as you possibly can. Stay safe. And we will be back on the air on Boxing Day, the 26th, with our next episode of the show on CKUT. Any last words, Jill, before we wrap things up?
So I would like to wish everybody, of course, the best for Christmas and for the new year. Take the time to listen to that radio. Maybe you'll be creating your own new memory of something about Christmas and radio related this year. And in the times where, it's getting a little complicated, I think our radios are a great way to enjoy and have fun and stay safe at the same time. So I hope everybody enjoys that. And thanks for being fans and following us. It's always appreciated.
It certainly is. We've been at this show since 1987, believe it or not. It's hard to imagine we've been around that long. But, we thank all of our listeners out there tuning in to all of our shows. And we will be back, as I said, on the 26th with the next edition. So even, you can send in some stories for us, maybe some New Year's stories that we can talk about as well. radioreport@yahoo.com is our email address. We're going to wrap up today's special, though, with something that's traditional with our own show here. And it goes back quite a few years. I think even back in the early years when I was doing the show with the first co-host, Bill Westenhaver. We're going to end it with a song that we've ended most of our shows close to Christmas with. It comes from a 1971 album by the Canadian artist Joni Mitchell, who is being honored this year, actually, with a Kennedy Center Honors to mark her long career in music. The song comes from the album Blue, which is 50 years old in 2021, which again is unimaginable that this is a 50-year-old record. But we played this song for Christmas, and we always got a lot of comments every year saying, wow, are you going to play that song again on, this Christmas? So we thought it would be appropriate to end our show with this song today by Joni Mitchell. The song is her Christmas song. It's been covered by many artists. It's called River. So we'll wrap everything up with that today. Thank you for listening, and tune us in again for the next edition of the International Radio Report. You can find us on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal every Sunday morning at 10:30 Eastern Time, 15:30 UTC. And you can always go and check our shows on our YouTube channel, which is International Radio Report, and join our Facebook group. Lots of people there enjoying radio, enjoying the show, exchanging information. So have a great holiday, everyone, and we'll talk to you next time on the International Radio Report.
Bye-bye.
songs of joy and peace. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. But it don't snow here, it stays pretty green. I'm gonna make a lot of money, then I'm gonna quit this crazy scene. I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I wish I had a river so long I would teach my feet to fly. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I made my baby cry. He tried hard to help me, you know, he put me at ease, and he loved me so, not he made me weak in the knees. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I'm so hard to handle, I'm selfish and I'm sad. Now I gone and lost the best baby that I ever had. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I wish I had a river so long I would teach my feet to fly. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I made my baby say goodbye. It's coming on Christmas, they're cutting down trees, they're putting up reindeer, singing songs of joy and peace. I wish I had a river I could skate